We're about to go up the steepest mountain pass that the Rebelle Rally has ever featured in the course. And we have no terra trip to guide us in terms of our distance. A terra trip is like a more accurate odometer, so that when we need to travel a very specific distance between this waypoint and this waypoint, I can track that distance and also track an overall distance. And we in our car like to have that terra trip right in front of the navigator, where I can be clearing that out and keeping really close eye on how far we've traveled. Because as we say in the Rebelle, distance and bearing don't lie. So now we don't have an accurate way of tracking our distance, and we start getting into some really difficult terrain. And we're supposed to go out into these trails and find these checkpoints.
They're very, very precise measurements, and it would be very difficult to do those accurately without a terra trip.
We're doing everything we can in that moment, and after about 5 minutes, Jenna says to me, well, we're just gonna have to keep going. We can't mess with it anymore, or we're gonna miss out on the rest of our day. So let's just do it without. So we start going up the trail, and we start to drop down the other side without our terra trip. And I start telling her when to zero out the onboard odometer, which is usually my job. And the next thing you know, we're tackling this crazy steep mountain pass with no terra trip, and immediately are met with what I remember as being one of the hardest checkpoints to find that we eventually had to leave behind. The trail that this checkpoint was on had clearly washed away at some point in the past, and the features that we were seeing on the map no longer existed, and we just, for the life of us, could not figure out with confidence whether we were at the checkpoint or not. And so we chose not to click, and it felt frustrating to leave a ton of time on the table with no points to reflect it, but we had to keep going. We roll up to a green checkpoint about 2/3 of the way through the day, and it's just kind of chaotic. There's cars coming up the trail, there's cars going down the trail, we're trying to find a different way in, and finally we come along to a blue flag. Blue flags are like such a relief when you're out there, and we're thinking, oh, okay, well, we've skipped 15, but now we're going to 16. This is great. And I'm pretty confident we're where we think I am. And we click that tracker, and we go 400 more meters, and we find another blue flag.
There's a blue flag right here.
And we realize the first one was not our blue flag, and we shouldn't have clicked on that flag. And so we have to swallow our pride and take a wide miss and lose 10 points. And keep going through the rest of our day and keep jamming along. And we know in our heart of hearts that if we want to be competitive in this rally, we've got to fix that terra trip. So we roll into Gold Point, Nevada, which is a ghost town, and set up our marathon camp night, and we spend 2 hours pulling apart the terra trip. And miraculously,
F***ing masters!
we're geniuses! Managed to solve our terra trip problem and set ourselves up for the next day. So we stay up late, we plot our checkpoints, we get up the next morning, pack up camp, and we're ready to go again. The day starts out really, really strong, and we're near the front of the pack with a bunch of really competitive teams. And thanks to Jenna's patience and smart ideas, we figure out how we're going to get some checkpoints in Toronto Pinnacles. And then we start moving down the trail, and we've got to head back into Spangler. And if it were in the vehicle we had last year, there's no way we would have gotten our checkpoints. But the suspension on that Defender 130 just allowed us to fly down this dirt trail. And so we pull up to this green checkpoint thinking we're just gonna go after a couple more checkpoints and then our day will be over. And there's a map challenge where you turn in your only 2 maps of that area, and they're gonna give you a new map. So I handed my beautiful maps to be handed a map, if you can even call it a map, that looks like the printer ran out of ink it was suddenly a little bit nerve-wracking.